What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I hope the new year has been good to you so far. We're kicking off the year with the first episode of Season 2 of Road to Open Qualifying. This will be a series of videos documenting my progression throughout the off-season as I prepare for upcoming US Open and Canadian Open qualifiers in May. The idea is that not only will you be able to follow the progress, but hopefully you yourselves will be able to gain some insight and improve your golf game going into 2025. Road to Open qualifying videos will be released on the first Monday of every month between now and May. And there is a chance that a few bonus episodes might be thrown in here or there. We will be discussing topics such as improving your wedge play, short game, how to hit the ball further off the tee, how to properly practice, as well as how to improve your mental approach to a round of golf. So if you're interested in following my journey and improving your game, make sure to hit that subscribe button and come along for the ride. For episode 1, we are talking wedge play with tour coach Shauheen Nakhjavani. Shauheen is a heavily sought after coach who works with several tour players. He's the coach that I worked with when I was struggling over the summer, and he really helped me have like a resurgence in my season and a strong finish to the 2024 season. Guys, don't forget that I'm doing a race to 5,000 subscribers giveaway, and this time we are giving away this Masters Divot Tool set. To enter the giveaway, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video, and comment your favorite Masters moment in the comment section down below. The draw will happen once we reach 5K subscribers or at the end of the 2025 Masters Tournament, whichever comes first. Without further ado, let's head over to Nakhjavani Golf and get right into it. All right, guys, so we're here with Shauheen Nakhjavani, Nakhjavani Golf. Welcome back to the channel.
Thank you.
Before we get into working on my wedge game, who's like the best wedge player you'd say you've worked with?
Probably Yannick.
Okay.
Actually, in fairness, nowadays it's Yannick. I think historically it's just Stephen Ames, Champions Tour player.
Yeah. Are there 1, 2, 3 things that make him a really good wedge player, or is it just because he's been doing it for so long, or are there things in common that you see between him and other good wedge and short game players?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
For sure there is. If we compare it, let's say, to the everyday golfer that we see in here versus a tour player, would just be your ability to control your launch.
Yeah.
For me, the ability to control your loft at impact allows you to control how the ball is going to come off the club face. That's the number one thing that tour players do better than the average golfer, especially with wedges. But the general rule of thumb is if you're going to hit a wedge, typically you want to launch it about half of the degrees of launch that the loft has on the club. So for example,
60 degree.
You have a 60 degree lob wedge in your hands right now. For launching this anywhere around 30 degrees, usually that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Typically I would want to see it launch a little bit lower as opposed to a little bit higher. Yeah. So if you have a lob wedge in your hands and you're launching at 28, 29, it's not a bad thing, of course.
Yeah. Speaking of launch, 60 degrees, I'll normally launch this around 27.5, 28 degrees.
So you're on the stronger side.
Correct. Yeah. For me, I like it as kind of like, let's say, my stock wedge shot. Something that I want to get a little bit better at is not just having the one kind of stock launch angle, being a little bit more comfortable if I want to launch it a little higher for when I'm playing on firmer conditions, or even if it's soft, if it's a short-sided pin or whatever it might be. So
put it this way, tour players, of course, they will launch it on average. They'll have their tighter range, but they have a very good ability to be able to come up and down with their launches if necessary.
Right.
Typically, I'm in the favor of doing that statically as much as possible.
So is that like through setup mostly?
Through setup, through ball position, through alignment with your feet, through the club face as setup, how it rests. The less we can try to play around with your actual feels of taking the club back, usually the more consistent you're going to get. So if you're somebody playing in an event, you're already going to be a little bit nervous, you're standing there, you have a 60 degree in your hands, you're typically going to launch it like this, but now all of a sudden the pin's at the front, there's a backstop, you want to launch it higher or something like that. And if you can do that statically, so through setup, through things that are not already moving, it's typically going to be a little bit easier to recreate, because then once you're ready to go, everything else is the exact same.
Big fan of that, because I'm not a fan of any player trying
to do something different.
If you will, right?
I mean, first of all,
mechanics to be pretty similar.
First of all, there's already a lot of signs to back up that just even in the full swing, trying to curve the ball the other direction from your stock is already very difficult and not easy to do. If we can do this by not necessarily touching how you have to feel going back, it's going to be a lot easier for you.
Perfect. So I guess I'll go ahead. I'm just going to hit a couple of kind of...
Yeah, we'll look at the data points and we'll kind of just run through
where
that.
we got to take it from there.
Sure.
Perfect.
So this is a 60 degrees, so we're going to expect somewhere around 30 degrees of launch angle.
Yeah.
A little bit lower, like you said, because you're a stronger, you're a little bit of a stronger flighted player.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, would you like to see that come up, or you're comfortable with where those numbers are for stock?
Comfortable where the stock shot is, because I definitely feel, in my experience, the better wedge players I've played with, they definitely flight.
You recently played with Boo Weekly on the channel. How was that?
Well, I mean, he can do whatever he wants,
Yeah,
but his stock is quite flighted.
It was pretty flat.
Yeah.
So just for reference, you can kind of see it here already, right? Like launch angle at 28.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good for a wedge. So your stock is obviously very good.
Yeah.
The only reason it's so much lower than the loft, because people often confuse the two numbers.
Yeah.
This is the amount of loft you have at impact, which obviously is going to be higher than where it's launching.
Yeah.
The reason it launches lower is because you're hitting down on the ball, which brings the launch down.
Yeah.
So 6 degrees down on the ball, very good for a wedge. 28 degrees of launch. I mean, these numbers are obviously very strong. The good news here is that you're not just launching it lower, but you're still spinning it plenty, which means, if you're in that, let's say 70, 80, 90 yard range, you can stop it pretty comfortably, which is good.
Yeah, that's never been an issue. Spinning, that's something I do want to talk about, is how do I take some spin off sometimes.
Off the ball? Got you.
We'll get into that.
Sure.
All right, I'll just hit a couple more here.
I might need a full another video for you.
Launch a hair higher.
So in your case, just for the video and for the people watching, when you're trying to launch it higher, you're trying to do anything different in this current system right now?
So
what is your system for playing around with wedges?
I haven't messed around a lot with ball position. If I'm on course, let's say I'm playing a tournament, I'm trying to hit a little higher. For me, it's more a field thing, kind of something Tiger talked about a lot with finishing, feeling like you finish
just hands high.
Yeah, and mixed results for me. I mean, I'm not Tiger. I don't have his hands.
Sure. I also think what Tiger felt and what was actually happening is a very different thing.
I completely agree with you. Yes.
To be fair.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. It can help bring the launch up.
Sure.
But I also think there was a lot of other variables involved while he was doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we look at these shots that I've hit, so far, hitting about an 80-yard shot. Right?
Is that what your intention was? More or less?
Yeah.
Okay.
Launching, between 28, 29 degrees, except for the one that ballooned up on me a little bit.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to hit one higher, launching at 31, 32, what's the first thing you would tell me to do?
So I would say for you, it might be different from other players, and I'll explain why. You have the ability to very simply move the ball up in your stance for two reasons. Number one, as the ball position moves forward, the obvious is your attack angle shallows out, you deliver more loft, the ball's going to launch higher in the air. It's the rule of ball position is no different with a driver in your hands, right? The physics versus with a wedge.
Yeah.
When we move the ball up with a driver, what happens? We hit more up on the ball. In your case, with a wedge, it means we hit less down on the ball, and we would deliver more loft. So the ball's going to launch a little bit higher in the air. In your case, it also helps you because it takes a little bit of spin off the ball as we shallow that out.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I say for you specifically this is beneficial where it wouldn't be for every golfer is because you're a natural drawer of the ball quite a bit.
Yeah.
What happens as the ball position moves forward with the path?
It should it should neutralize it a little bit more.
It'll move it a little bit left relative to where it was.
Right.
So because your starting point is about 4 or 5 degrees from the inside, if all we did was take your ball position and move it forward, in theory, that would neutralize that some amount.
Okay.
So rather than having a little bit of a draw curve, your expectation should be that it'll straighten the flight out.
Sure.
So you actually have a little bit of an advantage where most golfers wouldn't. Okay. Let's say if you took this exact same system, but the path was at -3, -4 instead of being 4 right. It becomes a little bit more complicated now because
now you can be getting 5.
Now you're getting a whitey on the ball, and now you're basically turning that into a longer version of a flop shot. The ball goes almost too high with too much spin.
Yeah.
You would likely see the smash factor drop off even further, and we don't necessarily want to be doing that. So obviously we still want to have some form of compression on the ball. If you're losing all compression, it's hard to control it. So in your case, because your path is already on the positive side quite a bit, you have that advantage. So let's exaggerate one just for the effect of the
video. You want to go all the way up, kind of?
Yeah, like move the ball position way more forward than what you're used to be doing. Like, let's call it 2 balls forward of where your stock would be.
Ooh, man, that looks weird.
Your strike point might change a little bit at the beginning, which is normal because you're not going to be accustomed to it, but I want to see how the data is going to alter once you do it.
Hit that a little low on the face, so I'm not surprised that it launched.
That's okay. Which is funny
because it still
launched lower to what your expectation was, still at 31 degrees of launch, right? Yeah. And that was a little bit of a miss hit, you said?
Yeah, just a little bottom droopy.
Yeah, that's okay. It's going to take some time to get just adjusted to the ball position being so much, more forward. That would be the one. if that registers, because on the TrackMan indoors, sometimes it might not catch it. Okay, perfect. Okay. So this is a prime example of what we would see, which is where your ball position moved forward, path neutralizes by 2 degrees relative to where it was before, which is the expectation as the ball's going up in your hand. And what happens to your launch? Up 4 or 5 degrees. Your launch is up 4 or 5 degrees from your stock, 3 degrees higher than the one that you said hit higher than what you're used to.
Yeah.
Your loft is up pretty significantly. You're averaging about 42, 43, so that's quite a bit of loft. So now what we're learning is we're launching the ball up in the air a lot more just through a static change.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm playing with somebody else within the system, this is the number that we would have to be careful with, right? Your attack angle, it's funny because as a tour player, you instinctively still wanted to hit a little bit down on the ball.
Yeah.
So you'll notice you're still on the steeper side. If you take a recreational golfer, for example, who doesn't have that kind of awareness that a tour player has, you probably would see this shallow out pretty dramatically.
I'm surprised mine didn't, to be honest. So.
In fairness, I think that's also because the first one you caught a little low in the face.
That's quite.
And what happens? You catch it low in the face, the tour player is going to instinctively try to avoid that on the next one.
Sure.
Maybe a little bit of lean to try to avoid that.
It's possible. Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I noticed, a big difference in the height.
Big difference in the height.
Yeah. We're apexing between 55 and 60, and that was 72 feet high.
Significantly higher than what you're used to.
Yeah.
Say one more. That's probably more of an ideal shot there.
Yeah.
Pretty well struck. Probably not as exaggerated. So this is a perfect example of what probably my expectation would have been on the one prior, where the fall off in club path is pretty significant. Yeah. There's a 3 degree difference from your stock to now.
Yeah.
That's a good thing for you when you move the ball up. That's what we're expecting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The height is still plenty higher than what your average.
Yeah.
You're still launching it higher than what your stock was, and you're still delivering a lot more loft. But the attack angle wasn't as steep as the last one. So very, very easy way for someone like you.
Yeah.
So if somebody's a driver of the ball, which I would argue you kind of are, right? A little bit more lean to the shaft.
Yeah.
A little bit more hands forward at impact.
Yeah.
You can afford to just move the ball position forward because you hit down on it so much, your path is so far right.
Yeah.
It's an easy change to make.
Cool.
It's a very easy change to make.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I love that because I'm not changing my mechanics.
You're not. No.
Just moving the ball up.
And if your stock was very good, it's not like you need to be doing this type of adjustment anyways that often.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, the rule of thumb, which I would suggest for everybody, is like play with your stock shot as often as you can, unless absolutely necessary. There's no reason you should be standing there and being like, flag at the middle of the green, it's a flat green, let me try to do something different than usual.
No.
What is the point? Hit your stock shot as long as your stock shot allows it.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more there.
Let's try to hit one of your stock ones again, so we'll see how it'll go back. Wasn't even the best stroke, but already we can see
I like the path.
Path goes right back to being a lot further right. Attack angle is going to be a little bit steeper.
Yeah.
We're going to see the launch come down quite a bit, the loft come down quite a bit.
Yeah.
And obviously the apex, that wasn't even the best struck ball, so maybe it came off a little higher than expected.
It did, yes.
But the rest of the numbers, it's pretty clear how they go back to what your usual is. So it's a very easy way to make an adjustment. And just in general, when it comes to recreational golfers, focus a lot. My suggestion would always be focus a lot on the launch. That's the most important thing. And then the second thing is look at the variables that are creating that launch.
Okay.
How much loft are you delivering? Because the reality is this number can be created in a variety of ways.
Sure.
That's kind of what's going to indicate how you can play around with the static format that you have to deliver a different type of launch condition if you want to change it. But because you're obviously a tour player who has very good numbers by nature, and it's very easy for us to just play around with the ball position and the change kind of gets made for itself.
Okay. So we've hit one up higher, or put a few up higher, let's say.
Yes.
If I really wanted to get one driving lower, are we just going to move the ball back?
This is where you got to be careful.
Well, because of my path, right?
Well, two things. These are the two things.
Yeah.
When you move the ball position back, what happens to those two numbers?
I'm going to get steeper and maybe more from the side. So.
Right. So there comes a point now where it's like, it's a little dangerous.
Sure.
You're already somebody who launches it pretty low for starters, so we do need to be careful with how much room we even have to launch it lower. Realistically speaking, for a guy like you, I probably wouldn't want to launch it any lower than your stock is anyways.
Yeah.
But for the sake of the argument, if we did want to launch it any lower, you have to be careful because moving the ball position back doesn't work for you because this gets steeper and this gets more right.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to be careful with like, okay, well, if we're going to try to drive it down any lower, how are we going to do that? We want to try to avoid those as much as possible.
Sure.
So for someone like you, there's a couple different things. You obviously have the alignment of your feet to your advantage.
Yeah.
Right? We can aim a little bit differently than we're used to.
Yeah.
If you were to change your alignment, obviously we would aim it a little bit more left.
Yeah.
We would open it up. When you open it up, you are changing your attack angle how right now?
If I'm opening it up, I'd be shallowing.
No, you would still be hitting down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a trick question.
Yeah.
So you would still be hitting down on the ball, but your path would be neutralizing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do we then get the attack angle to offset that just a little bit? Believe it or not, we would actually move the ball position a little forward.
Whoa.
So what I'm trying to do now is I'm actually trying to keep your attack angle somewhat similar.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to get your path a lot more this way.
Yeah.
And naturally, in doing that, you're going to drive it a lot more.
Okay. Interesting.
So not significantly forward.
Yeah. So
Just a hair.
like a ball forward, half a ball
Like a half a ball forward.
Okay. Open up the stance a little bit.
Open up your stance a little bit. And then if you really want to get it a little bit more drivey, what I tell people is stand a little closer to the ball.
Okay.
And
a
then
little more upright.
get this a little bit more upright.
Yeah.
And now you can afford to have a little bit more
That'll
lean.
neutralize the club face.
It'll neutralize the club face. Exactly. Because obviously, we're trying to get the club face in a stronger position. Well, if I have the hands really low, and then I'm trying to get any of the club face in a stronger position, whether by going like this, or by just shutting the face a little bit, I'm shutting it down a lot.
Of course.
Well, now I can actually strengthen the loft.
Yeah.
But if I actually raise the handle up,
Then it'll
directionally it neutralizes it.
Because that's definitely when I've played around with trying to flight wedge shots. A lot of it is I shut down the club face.
But because your handle's so much lower,
Exactly.
the ball's going to go there.
Right. I never thought about just getting closer to it.
If you get closer to it, you're naturally going to raise the handle up. And when you raise the handle up, number one, it moves the starting direction to the right, which allows you to strengthen the face.
Yeah.
But also number two, now you can create some of this and not worry about the left side.
Okay. So a little closer.
Yeah.
Ball a little bit further forward.
Just a hair, very minimal.
Yeah. And then
You're
really feel like I go a little more left down my foot line.
Yes. And obviously you can afford to strengthen the face just a hair. So this is the type of environment that I would probably create for a golfer who wants to launch it lower. Obviously, they didn't catch all the data points, but we did see the launch.
Did come out
The launch and the height are obviously significantly lower than they were before.
And a little bit less spin.
A little less spin, which is good because why are you spinning it less?
Less loft.
Less loft. When you're creating less loft, you're creating essentially more compression.
Correct.
So your smash factor goes up. You were averaging about 0.9 something.
Yeah.
On the other ones, you're getting over 1 now.
Yeah.
Alright guys, I hope you're enjoying this video so far. We ended up with so much great information and insights into wedge play that I had to split this video into 2 parts. Part 2 of this video will be releasing in 2 weeks, so make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever a video is uploaded. In part 2, we will be focusing on how to properly control distance on those in-between wedge shots, you know, those like 40, 50, 70 yard shots that the majority of people struggle with. That's going to do it for this video. We'll see you in a couple of weeks for part 2, and as always, I'll be back again next week with another video. Cheers, guys.